Today's video, we're going to talk about how many tracking numbers you need to be able to accurately track the results from your PPC campaigns that you're running on Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, and so forth, or in basically any ads that you're running online in order to get the maximum level of sales and profits from your PPC campaign and every dollar that you're investing into PPC or paid online advertising for your brand right now. You may be using call tracking. Call tracking is usually set up wrong by the different people that we see at our agency at any given time, and especially if they're only trying to use one tracking number to track all their campaigns. If you're doing something other than PPC, these same things apply. I'm going to give you the really need to know information about call tracking and the number of call tracking numbers you actually need to track your results right, so that you end up with 2, 3, 4 times as much profit from your ad spend or traffic long term, because you're actually tracking the number of phone calls and sales from those phone calls that you ultimately are generating, which you should be doing both, by the way, and get therefore the maximum amount of profit from what you're doing, because all the data you have about how many calls you got and how much people are spending from those calls that generate a lead, and using that maximum amount of business and information to get the ultimately give that to your ad platforms, which will have the maximum amount of data and then get you the maximum amount of sales results per dollar spent on ads. So with all that said, I'm going to get right into the content. A lot of people think when you're doing PPC, and I'll just talk about PPC even though this is talking about any paid online advertising or basically any traffic that you drive to your website, whether you actively are paying per click or whatever you're doing. But I'll talk about PPC because this is a PPC channel specifically. That if you're doing PPC, most people think you only need one tracking number to track whether or not somebody calls from your landing page or website to see if your ads work or not. If you're using call tracking, like a call tracking program to track how many calls you're getting, which by the way, that should be your first thing you do if you're not using a call tracking program. Some people will think, oh, I have a Ring Central account, to run my phone systems at my company. I'll just get another phone number from Ring Central, and I'll put that on my landing pages that I'm sending my Google ad traffic to. And if they call from that number, I know how many calls I got. Hey, yay. Nope, that's not at all the way that you want to do it if you're going to make very much money at all, basically. But even if you're using a call tracking provider like CallRail, like Call Tracking Metrics, like Mongoose Metrics, Invoca, there's a bunch of different call tracking providers out there, a bunch of small ones. CallRail's the best one that you want to use, respectively speaking, and I'm not just saying that because I'm paid by CallRail. I wish CallRail, if you want to pay me, come by and offer me some money already. But no, in all seriousness, CallRail is the most reliable call tracking provider that you can use and software that you can use. It's the big boy. Generally, when you're buying software for your business, you just want to use the big boy if you can afford it, because it has the least problems, errors, the best support. Everything else in software in that world, you just want to go with what everybody else is using, because you're going to have the least problems with it down the road. But anyway, with that said, if you're using a call tracking software, you're not tracking everything if you're only using one phone number within that call tracking program to track all your results with. And so there's two main ways that you can track your results with most call tracking softwares, including CallRail, including Call Tracking Metrics, and so forth. I'll speak about CallRail since that's what I'm most familiar with and recommend all you guys to use that watch this channel. So there's two types of call tracking. There's dynamic call tracking and then there's static call tracking. Dynamic call tracking in a nutshell is where you place a piece of or snippet of web code on your website, on all the pages of your website. It's a JavaScript code, copy and paste it on the head section of every page of your website, which then takes any phone number it finds on your website, and when a user hits the website, it takes the phone number that's there and swaps it with another tracking number that the call tracking provider has in its system that's allocated to you and you alone. so that when the user sees your website, they only see the tracking number from CallRail or the call tracking provider, so that when they want to call, they call actually CallRail's number that you've paid for through CallRail, then automatically reroutes to your phone number or your phone number of choice. And with that, it at the same time of the person calling, it captures all the details about that user, where they're from, what keyword they typed in, what ad they clicked on, basically all the main stuff you would want to know that goes into improving your ad performance later on. Ultimately, the reason why they call it dynamic, is because actively that phone number is not there until somebody visits that web page on a web browser. Otherwise, the normal phone number that's always been on your website is the one that's physically there itself. So basically, it's never on your website. It just automatically swaps for the user on their screen itself, and with that allows you to basically capture all this so-called metadata about the user and how they found your website and so forth, so that when they call, at the time of calling, your call tracking provider not just knows somebody called, but they called from what place they called from, what ad they clicked on, and so forth, so you can see it inside your call tracking software. And more importantly, you can see that same data inside your ad account because you've linked your call tracking provider to your ad accounts. You've linked it to Google Analytics so you can see it there. You've linked it to wherever you need to link it to, which those are the two main places you link it to, your Google Analytics account and your ad accounts that you're running ads on. And then from inside your ad accounts, you can see what ad they clicked on, what audience they were from, what time of the day they searched, what day of the week they searched, what device they were on, were they married, do they have kids, how old they are, what's their gender, on and on and on and on and on, which through the over time of investing into pay-per-click advertising, or just online advertising if you want to call it that, the more data you collect on who buys from you, or in this case, if you want to keep it simple, who calls, that you have, the more profitable you can be with your ads, because you know exactly what's that sliver of the market that likes your product and service more than anybody else. Therefore, that's what you should be spending money on to basically attract. And everybody else, basically you don't have to totally not market to them, but you're going to be willing to spend way less to market to them, and you'll take whatever you can get at a lower price. Otherwise, you'll pay full price for this stuff over here that converts above average. And that's basically the mechanics behind how you make millions of dollars at PPC. You don't expect to get rich, but over time, if you collect enough data, you got that piggy bank that you're filling up one coin at a time. You spend another dollar and another dollar and another dollar on pay-per-click, and you're just amassing all this data about what works and what doesn't. Eventually, it'll work. It's just a matter of when. But going back to the dynamic call tracking, that whole process is you could do all that through specifically using this dynamic call tracking that's based upon using web code that's placed on your website and having that number swap for the user when they see the number itself, okay? So, and ultimately, as a part of another main feature of this dynamic call tracking is the fact that because if you think about it, if somebody's on your website and they see a number that has been dynamically put there on the web page that they see, and they call it, and somebody's on the same web page that they're on at the same time of them, ultimately, how's the call tracking provider going to know, just by the web code and then ultimately the phone number that's showing, if there's just one phone number that they could possibly show, which person is which, basically. So with that, if there's more than one person on the website at any given time, then each person that's on the website at the same time as other people, or if there's two people on your website at the same time, ultimately maybe they also came from ads at the same time, because you can decide to have that tracking number show up if they came from an ad and not for everybody else. But if let's say you wanted to show up for people that have clicked on an ad, so you can track people that come from your ads and do what I mentioned before you need to do to make millions of dollars with the PPC. They see a different number than each other, so that CallRail or your call tracking provider can distinguish one person from the other, so that when they call, they know which is which, basically. Because if they just showed the same number, even though that web code is on their website, that web code's on your website, it's not that in and itself isn't sophisticated enough to differentiate one person from the other. So what you typically have with call tracking, dynamic call tracking, is you have a pool of numbers now, a pool of 4, 8, whatever numbers, so that if there's more than one person on the website at any given time, they will see a different number. There'll actually be a different number for each person. And then when somebody drops off the site, that number that the person was shown goes back into the available pool for another person to be able to get if another person gets on the site, at the same time as the other remaining people that are on the website at that or any given time. So if you get what I'm saying. So dynamic call tracking, the reason why they call it dynamic is because the tracking number is actually not on the website until your browser renders it, and then it's there for the user, and when they leave, ultimately it's not there anymore for the user, so to say. And also dynamic in that the system decides what number you're going to be shown based upon the number of other people on the site at the same time as you or as the user. So there's dynamic call tracking, and then there's static call tracking, which I see a ton of people that come into our PPC firm making the mistake of doing, which is basically the opposite of this, which is you have one tracking number, which the call tracking providers provide this, and if you don't know any better, you kind of maybe just go for this because it's simpler to set up, easier to understand, where there's no ultimately number that just shows up for the user on their web browser when they go to your website. Well, all you do with this, you're allocated a tracking number by the call tracking provider if you go with the static call tracking option. You put that phone number on your web page in replacement of the number that you normally had there, like your real phone number of your business, so that from now on when people go to your website, they see the tracking number that you've bought or purchased from CallRail. They call that tracking number, and then obviously every single call from now on that calls that tracking number that's now on your site, you can see that number of calls that were generated through your call tracking provider dashboard itself. Why you don't want, by default, this static call tracking option is, like I was trying to explain before, if you just have this number that you stick on your website, none of the data about the user and where they came from, at least most of the data, isn't going to be able to be captured and sent to your ad account that you need to optimize your ads, and where half or more of the value from your ad spend comes from, i.e. gathering and accumulating data to find out what's the really most profitable thing to go after in your market. So you'll know how many calls you got because it'll show up in your call tracking provider program, and it'll also show up in Google Analytics there if you wanted to show up there, but it won't be able to be sent to your ad platform, because you don't get it with static call tracking. And I could get into technical reasons why, but in short, you can't. If you want it to show up in your ad programs too, then dynamic call tracking programs are what you want, and practically speaking, there's absolutely no fucking way that you don't want to have that call data inside your ad platforms, because literally speaking, half of what you're all going to make over time with PPC is going to be predicated on the data that you've accumulated in your account about what works and what doesn't, so you know what to spend for these people over here versus these people over here. And if you don't have that data in your account, and particularly if you get to a point where you're stuck and you can't get your ads any more profitable, all the time that you've spent up to then to run your ads to hopefully make money from it, completely wasted. Versus on the flip side, if you get to where you need an $8 return for every dollar spent on ads, and you get to $6 in return for every dollar in return on ads, and that's just simply not feasible, because if you're not at 8 to 1, you don't have enough, you're not making money, you're not profitable, in other words. You're making money, but after expenses you're not. If you have all that data because you started with the dynamic call tracking and imported that data into your ad account, you could just simply go, okay, make a simple change, go in there and say, okay, out of the calls that I got, here's how many calls I got from people that are 30 plus versus under 30. Let's just get rid of under 30, because basically almost no calls came from there, and then bang, right away you've reached your threshold of your 8 to 1 return. From there on, you're profitable. So it literally can be the make or break whether you're going to make millions of dollars with your ads long term or nothing. Literally nothing. And actually lose money and lost your time in trying to invest and get the system working. Everything with PPC and paid ads online comes down to figuring out what numbers you need from your campaign. Do I need an $8 return for every dollar in sales or dollar in ad spend? Do I need a $10 in sales for every dollar in ad spend I invest? Setting up your tracking, running your ads long enough to figure out what works and what doesn't, shutting off the stuff that doesn't work, leaving the stuff that does work, and now you got a profitable campaign. Very, very few times are you going to be lucky enough to turn on your ads and it just works with no optimization, no weeding out of the stuff that doesn't work. Unless you're selling something you're a new, hot item in a category, or you're just a new category altogether, you're going to have, if there's competition in your market already, that's going to have to be your way to have your edge on the people that have been there doing it for a long time already. So ultimately, static call tracking allows you to have one phone number. You have to buy at least 4 numbers with dynamic call tracking to get that to work. But if you don't have the dynamic call tracking to work, a lot of times you're just never going to make money with your ads, because you're never going to get the data, which is half of the value of running the ads, about what works and doesn't work, by running one number and using the static call tracking option that these call tracking providers provide you kind of by default. So even if you're using dynamic call tracking with a minimum of 4 numbers here, like I talked about, you'll generally outgrow this quickly and have not enough numbers, meaning less accurate tracking, which then means automatically less profit from how much you're spending, whatever you're spending on ads as well. So what I mean by that specifically is, as I mentioned before, with dynamic call tracking, the idea is if there's 4 people on your site at the same time, all 4 people will be shown a different number from your call tracking pool, so that the call tracking provider, CallRail, or whatever you're using, can pick up the so-called metadata about where that person came from, how they got to your website in the first place, and so forth, individually for each user, and so they can database it individually for each user, so that they can send that data about each user that called to the ad platform that you're trying to get results from. If you only have 4 tracking numbers in your dynamic call pool that you're using with your dynamic call tracking profile, and there's 5 people on your site at the same time, right away there you're going to start losing data because you don't have enough call numbers in your pool. And I see people all the time. I'll just tell you, I get clients all the time at our firm, and they start bitching. Why is it we're paying $200 a month for CallRail? Whatever. And you try to explain to them, this is a good thing. You actually have grown your, the amount of traffic you can afford to spend more on PPC. Naturally, the amount of money you're going to spend on call tracking is going to go up, because you're going to need a bigger pool of numbers to track all the same amount of, to track all the people that are going to be on your site at the same time. If you're running an ad account where you're spending $50,000 a month on ads, you'll probably have to get 20, 30 numbers, unique numbers, to track all the potential. Because it's not just about what the average amount of people is on your site, it's about peaks. What's the, in terms of the peak time that you're running your ads, what's the maximum amount of people that are on your site at any given time? And that's the number of numbers you need minimum. Actually, you want to go more, just because you're going to grow and you want to be extra careful. So ultimately, you might have an average, if you have a $50,000 a month budget, let's say hypothetically, the average amount of people on your site are around 10 or 12, but really it goes up to about 35 at any given time. You'll want to have 45 numbers, just so that you're extra covered, and make sure there's no chance that the call tracking provider can't track the people that are on your site, because there's too many people on your site at any given time. So this goes way beyond having 1 phone number. You might need to have 50 phone numbers to be able to track properly with call tracking and pick up all the maximum amount of data from your campaign and your users coming that you're driving from your ads to your landing pages or your website, to have that data to optimize your campaigns with. So, and ultimately, your results with PPC, since it's half or more just predicated on past performance and the algorithms and understanding when somebody buys from you, and then taking that data and looking at the millions of data points that they have on that user that they've stored up over time, because they track everything you do online, even when you leave their website, i.e. Google, Facebook, and so forth, that ultimately it's data, crap data in, crap results out. So if you start having to where only half or 3/4 of the people can be tracked in terms of the phone calls that they're making, because you don't have enough phone numbers in your dynamic call pool. Your account's now gonna really, because the Google, Facebook, and so forth are going to push your ads based upon what's worked in the past. The missing call data will throw them off, and they'll start saying, "Wait a second, what worked before doesn't work anymore." Now we have to reevaluate everything all over again at some point if you keep it going long enough. And whatever momentum you had, it now is completely derailed, just simply because you didn't have enough call tracking numbers in your account. So you need to go into your Google Analytics account and look at, because you can find that data there, or you can find it in CallRail inside your account there. What's the amount of people you have on your site at any given time, in your peak times, and make sure you have enough call tracking numbers to cover the maximum amount of people that could be on your site at any given time. So there's no time in the growth of your PPC account of reinvesting your money that you're making back into more ads and more ads and more ads, which is how people get to where they're at, where they're spending 50 grand a month, they spend $1,000 a month, and then reinvest over and over again with a good plan in place, that you don't end up screwing it all up at some point because you weren't keeping track of how many tracking numbers you needed at any given point to accurately track all the users coming to your website. But as a side note, if you don't know as well, since we're talking about call tracking here, you don't want to be just tracking phone calls to your website. You want to be tracking up front at least what are qualified calls, because if you're running ads, a lot of times people will call looking for a job, people will call trying to sell you shit, people will there'll be bots that are crawling up your website, picking up your number and then calling and putting your number into a spam database to call you with marketing messages or whatever. You need to be able to track when you have a qualified call, so that the ad platforms that you're using and the algorithms that are trying to get you better results get the actual data about who actually you got a sales qualified lead that came in, not just a call, since half of the calls you get are shit. And like I said before, the better quality data in, the better results out. So if you can do that through keypad scoring using your same call tracking provider. You can do that by listening to your calls and inserting a call value for the the calls that are legit calls, where it's a sales qualified lead. You can put a value of 100, and then you can see that in your ad account. There's other ways that you can do exactly what I'm talking about. Offline conversion tracking is one. Watch a video about the offline conversion tracking setup I have on this channel. It's a great tutorial on how to actually do that kind of thing for your PPC campaigns that you're running. But at the end of the day, you want that, and as you get a little bit further along, you've accumulated even more data. The ultimate is when you get a sale, as long as the customer buys within a 90-day period of them initially clicking on your ad, you can take the sales data and through your call tracking that you already have, plug that into your ad account, so that you can not just see somebody called or it was a qualified call, but they bought and how much they spent specifically, and use that to drive your ads. And that's going to be a whole nother level of results that you're going to be able to get when you actually feed that level of data into your account. And every single business that I would be running, where I'm going to run any kind of sizable PPC campaign, where I'm generating leads, I'm going to be sending data about customer sales data to Google, to Facebook, to guide the ads, because you're going to get at least 3 times more results having the sales/revenue level data into your account, doing an offline conversion tracking setup using our call data about the person who called. And if basically all that happens is your call tracking provider captures all the data about the caller. Later on, when that same person buys, you take the customer's name who bought and how much they spent. You match that up with your dashboard that you have all your caller data in your call tracking provider's dashboard. And then you basically say, yep, that's the same person that bought here, that's in my customer database, and then that data gets sent to your ad account. And there's a way to automate all this as well. Or you could do it manually, like we do sometimes. But either way, with the amount of effort and time that takes to send the sales data to your ad account versus just whether somebody called or not, and the amount of money you're going to make, there's no time where that's not going to make sense to do that. You may not start off doing that necessarily, but that should be definitely your end goal. Every single business that's trying to scale using PPC for their business, period, basically. And if you have questions about that, you could let me know. But anyway, as it comes to all that, if you're going to do revenue importing of your customers and the revenue that they spent that originated from calls back into your ad account, you got to have the right amount of tracking numbers in your call tracking pool, and definitely need to be using dynamic call tracking instead of static call tracking inside and with your call tracking provider. As an aside, by the way, you also want to do, if you're going to be importing sales revenue to your account, do the same thing with the contact form fills you get, so you can send data through to your account that way as well, using hidden form fields on your forms. And watch my offline conversion tracking video for more about that. Similarly, if you guys are doing e-commerce, you've got e-commerce guys and gals out there. If you're selling something over $100, you want to do the call tracking and the form tracking in that same way where you're sending data to your account. If you take any kind of orders over the phone, 10% or more of your orders are done through the phone, and you do most of it through the cart, but at least 10% of the orders are done through the phone, you're going to really do so much better if you're going to send the phone orders through and back to your account using this offline conversion tracking process as well. So anyway, that's a long story short here about phone numbers, number of phone numbers you need to accurately track results on a PPC campaign to get the maximum level of results on your account. So not one number, not 4 numbers, but many numbers as it comes to when you eventually get to the point of scaling your account and you get more and more traffic to your site. So you need call tracking if you're going to get good results, and you got to know how to set your call tracking software up to get the maximum value of it if you're really going to bank hard from your PPC long term for your company, if it relies on phone calls coming in to generate business. So that said, I'll wrap it up. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. I have a lot of other videos on this channel about other money-making PPC strategies. If you want to learn how to make a ton of money with PPC, subscribe to this channel, as I'm giving you the strategies that work as I manage several dozen PPC campaigns at any given time, and I tell you the stuff that works and the stuff that doesn't work, so you can basically have all the information you basically need to make money with PPC without having to go through all the hell that I had to go through to learn it all here for myself. I've been doing PPC for 15 years, and I give you the strategies that basically work and up-to-date strategies that will continue, that come up and are the new things that will keep you ahead in your market. If you like the video here and the channel here, also have a blog at guaranteedppc.com/blog, where there's other writing by myself that shows you step by step on how to set up PPC campaigns to guarantee yourself results on those campaigns that you're trying to set up for your company, given that's what we have to do for our clients here. So if you like the channel, you'll like the blog. I'll tell you that right now. It's a great secondary resource. Beyond that, if you get the video a like, I'd appreciate it. And beyond that, if you have any questions about this video or anything about the content that I shared today, leave me a comment below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a comment on this channel, usually within a couple days' time. You can, any PPC related question at all, feel free to leave me a comment. I'll generally be able to answer any PPC related question you want. In addition, and just even if it has nothing to do with the topic at hand today on today's video that you watched. Beyond that, last thing I'll mention, I have a brand new program here at our PPC agency where we're offering turnkey PPC campaigns. So if you're not looking for somebody to help you manage your PPC campaigns outright, if you want basically the results in a market that we've already been in, you're not in competition with one of our current or past clients, you're in another geographic market, in other words, that our client is not in, instead of going through all the hassle and work to learn how to build up a multi-million-dollar a year producing sales results campaign for your market, you can use the results we've already got in your market or a similar market and literally copy and paste those results into your account and know about what results you'll get ahead of time, because we can release that kind of information. With that said, a lot of people are starting other businesses in certain markets that we've already got a campaign proven that already generates millions of dollars of sales in that market, copy and pasting the results into their account in terms of campaign, landing pages, and everything, and outsourcing all the work to another provider in the area and banking tons of money doing that. So maybe it's just easier for you to make money that way than with the business that you're trying to start up, potentially. Otherwise, we may have a campaign in your market that we've already built up over the years, and it's just really the ironclad version of everything that works in that market. and trying to build it up for yourself, even watching this channel, would be a little silly. So anyway, there's only one way to know if I have a campaign template that's already been built up in your market already, which is to reach out to us and we'll let you know. That said, I'll wrap it up with that. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in my next video where we have another great strategy for you there. See you there.